Welcome to the MBR show, where we scrutinise the latest bikes, critique the newest hardware and discuss the hottest topics in mountain biking. In this episode, we're going to take a closer look at the new Scott Ransom and the latest Pivot Switchblade, both of which have just been released. But before we get into those, Al, let's catch up on a little bit of news.
Yep, so you're going to kick it off, right?
Yep, so I think I'm going to talk about the Focus VAM Squared.
VAM? Is that just a typo, or is it a jam, or?
Yeah, they've got the jam, the SAM, and
The
now
VAM?
the VAM.
Okay.
Don't ask me, I don't name these things.
Okay, yeah. So what is the VAM?
The VAM Squared is a new lightweight kind of down country e-bike with a Fazua motor.
Okay. Travel?
125mm. So Focus has already got a Fazua powered Jam Squared. The main differentiation here is it got flex stay rear end.
Okay.
So
it sounds like they've got a target headline weight. What is it?
16.2 kilos.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good. And that is a medium frame, I believe. That is obviously the top of the line model.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of different carbon layups depending on the price. It's got like Fox factory stuff. Interestingly though, it's for a downcountry bike with short travel, it's certified to category 4, which is
which is pretty hardcore.
one below the highest in terms of strength and fatigue and stuff like
Does that come with the full size 430 watt hour Fazua battery?
Yep, does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, because I mean it's going to have good range too.
Well, it's got really fast rolling Schwalbe tires, so yeah, range is going to be off the charts. Sounds like a cool bike. Maybe we'll try and get one.
Basically an XC bike with a motor.
Yeah. So next up, some sad news, potentially from Wales. Coedy Brenin, much loved trail centre, actually birthplace of trail centres in the UK, is under threat of closure at the moment.
The trail centre or the visitor centre?
Well, the visitor centre, but whether that will affect the trails is uncertain at this moment. It may do. I think so. Natural Resources Wales that looks after it are not really kind of expanding on exactly what's going to happen yet. They're conducting a review at the moment. They're just struggling for funding.
Yeah, that'd be a real shame because, I'm not sure what the visitor centre's like, but it'd be a real shame to lose the trails.
Well, 100,000 visitors a year apparently there.
Wow.
Home to our very own MBR trail as well. So let's hope that it's saved.
Which I've heard is really good on an e-bike.
Yeah, but it would be.
We should go there and ride.
One of those Focus VAMs would be pretty good.
Why don't we go and ride? We should go there and ride it.
We should. It's been probably 20 years or something.
Exactly. Let's for one of the shows, let's put it in the show now that we're going to go and ride the MBR trail on some e-bikes and to see how the bike technology's moved on. And to see
how the trails have worn out.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be cool.
It would be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a decision potentially going to be made in March. So
we need to get our skates on then, haven't we?
Yeah. Cool. And then I think to round it up, you've got some news from Formula.
Yeah. So Formula. Well, there's a movement in general about the kind of start in the US with the whole sort of right to repair, and it's coming through into Europe. Europe's got its equivalent to that, and I think it's mostly for white goods. But Formula seems to be getting out in front of that, and they're going to offer spares and servicing for components up to 10 years. Starting from, I think it was anything after 2017, they'll have backup and support for the next 10 years.
Okay.
That applies to forks, brakes, and rear shocks.
Yeah. So the full Formula
which is
spectrum.
Great, which is absolutely amazing because there's definitely a culture, and I'd say especially with brakes that they're kind of disposable. Like when they stop working, it's hard. You can't get seals for the master cylinder. There's just problems with them. You end up having to chuck stuff away, and I think it's really good. I mean, Hope's been doing that for ages, so it's really good to see Formula getting on a similar program. So I'm really excited about that. I think more brands will follow suit too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so while we're on the subject, so who actually distributes Formula in the UK?
It's Elro Distribution, so you can go there, you go to their website. They've actually got a lot of spares, legacy parts and stuff listed online, so you can go and search for bits that you need. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. We'll kick off with the bike we've got behind me, which is the new, 100% brand new Pivot Switchblade that you've been riding.
Yeah, I have been riding. I've done a pretty good job cleaning it. So this isn't a launch bike with this just been hung here. I had it pre-launch. The old Switchblade was billed as the Switchblade because you could kind of adapt it. You could run 29 or plus size tires and wheels in it.
Not really something anyone does anymore.
It's not something anybody does anymore. But the bike is actually, although it doesn't have the tag here anymore, the little plus thing, you can still put a 2.8, I think, or a 3.0 inch tire on a 27.5 wheel if you wanted to, which we get to in a minute might actually be a good thing.
Okay.
Travel is 142, exactly 142.
So is that Pivot's trail bike then?
This is Pivot's trail bike,
Right.
yeah.
Because it's a bit of a confusing range sometimes.
Well, the problem is, right, trail bikes kind of shifted closer to enduro bikes. Like 150mm trail bikes are almost like enduro bikes. So there's kind of like, there's always overlap in everyone's range. And I think there's a shift now with brands trying to kind of make things a little bit clearer for people. And maybe that's why 142 kind of mil travel isn't really enduro travel. So it's clear that it's a trail bike. 29, full 29er. It has a little flip chip just up here. You can change the geo. So this bike is 0.5 degree slacker in the head angle and 1 degree steeper in the seat angle in the previous version. And it's not that big a change.
No.
I'd actually like to see this bike be a little bit lower and slacker. So what I'd like from it is that flip chip to be a little bit more extreme in terms of how it drops and lowers the bike. But what Pivot have done that's really good is they've increased the sizing.
Yep.
So this bike's got a 480mm reach for size L, which is my perfect size, whereas on the old version, it was a little bit small.
Yep.
And a lot of people would have upsized maybe and swapped the rear wheel to make it mullet to slacken and lower it. So this bike is definitely an improvement on the old bike, but I just think they could have gone a little bit further to make it a really hardcore trail bike. The other thing is it takes a super boost, 157mm rear wheel, so you need to have a super boost rear wheel. You can't just pick a wheel of another bike and plug it in.
It's a little bit more complicated.
It does make it complicated, but even though with the wider rear end, there's no heel clearance issues and stuff, and the curve stays. What I really like about this bike, it's really slender, it's really streamlined. It kind of like just kind of disappears below you. And I think part of that too is visual, because the obvious thing that's missing from this bike is downtube storage.
Right. So that's again bucking a bit of a trend there.
Totally. And like, I mean, I spoke to Pivot about it and they were like, well, you know, we wanted to keep the proportions of the down tube similar because it affects the flex and we don't want to cut a hole in it and then have to reinforce it and that adds weight. And then a lot of people like down tube storage is nice, but like if you leave your stuff in there for a long time, you ride in wet conditions, it kind of gets pretty manky. Yep. It gets wet. The down tubes aren't sealed. Yep. So they were like, they've partnered up with Toe Peak. Yep. To offer like bolt-on tools. So they've got a mount under the top tube and they've got a mount under the down tube right in front of the BB. I
like the fact that a brand from Arizona is thinking about people in the UK getting like rinsed for 6 months of the year.
Yeah, it's insane, right? Because they're like, it's the last place. When we've ridden there, like they're in Phoenix, and it's like the last place you worry about rain.
And what is, if they're talking about not having to reinforce the area for weight saving stuff, what's the weight of that bike?
Like it's just under 15 kilos.
Okay, so kind of average-ish.
Yeah, it is average. Yeah, it's not got super lightweight wheels on it. It's got alloy wheels. So there's a ton of options globally, but in the UK there's only been 3 options. There's the SRAM equipped bike, the XO bike, and then there's a Shimano equipped bike. Yep. And they offer the Shimano bike with carbon wheels or alloy wheels, and that changes the price basically. Yeah. And Saddleback can basically offer you, if you want to upgrade these wheels to carbon, you can upgrade them to DT Swiss carbon, or they also do Envy, so you can do if you want to really push the boat out, you can put Envy wheels on.
A bit of customization.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So anything else we need to know about this?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't even know how to say this. Let's call them semi-size specific chainstays. They're not even, I'll explain. So there's 5 frame sizes, Yep. The XS, the S, and M, all of the same chainstay length. Yeah. And I think it's 429.
Yeah, it's short.
It's really short. Yeah. The L grows by 3 or 4 mil. Right. And the XL grows by another couple of mil. So they're all really short and they're not proportional, but they are different, but 3 sizes are the same. So you can see where the trouble I had coming up with a term to describe it. Yeah.
And how do they do that then?
Again, it's like the classic way, and the pickup points for the rear triangle and the front triangle. Okay. And obviously, the problem with this extra small, the small, and the medium is that the limiting factor is a 29-inch wheel. Yeah. So they couldn't get shorter than that.
Well, it's still short though.
It's really short. Yeah. And then, to be fair, it does affect the ride of the bike. The rear ends are short, and like all of the pivots I've ridden recently, they're really good at masking the fact that it's got a 29-inch rear wheel, and that's in terms of like clearance and in terms of handling, how the bike tips into turns and how it feels. The bikes feel dynamic, they don't feel cumbersome. And I think part of that is driving that shorter rear end. Yeah. But there's a downside to it. On this bike, I found because it's not got the steepest seat angle, when you're climbing on steeper climbs, you do feel like that old sort of cross-country feel where you have to kind of slide forward on the seat a bit and get on the nose of the saddle. It's not the most comfortable position for climbing, but so it's definitely not a winch and plummet style trail bike. It's definitely a trail bike that's been designed for long days in the saddle, comfortable position, and it's got a really nice ride feel to it. I'd just like it to be a little bit more open, just so you can let it run a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice bike. This bike's $9,000, hell of a lot of money. And at that kind of price, you'd probably be asking, where's the motor?
Yeah, so I've actually got a bike that's more expensive than that one, and it still doesn't have a motor.
Oh my God.
I've got the latest Scott Ransom.
Okay.
5 years since the last Ransom came out. So that bike's had a pretty good shelf life. And now, again, we're talking about sustainability earlier. Don't know whether that's Scott's like aim with that bike. Anyway, and I looked at that bike that we tested in 2018 when I was writing up the first ride. And it actually, for an Enduro bike, had 170 mil of travel back then in 2018. It also weighed just under 13 kilos. The new bike, 15.75 kilos. So it's been on the pies.
To be fair, I'd say that the weight of the bikes now is more appropriate for the intended use.
Yeah, exactly. And it's unfair to single Scott out because it's across the board. Every Enduro bike has
Most Enduro bikes are 16 kilos.
100%. And also that 15.75 includes the inner tube inside the down tube.
Okay, with the storage.
There's a tool inside there, bits and bobs. So not only that, I mean, Scott has been working through the range with its hidden shock technology, integrated suspension technology, I think it's called. The Ransom was pretty much the last bike left, apart from the Gambler, to get that treatment. And that's not all though. It's got a 6-bar linkage, so up from the 4 that it had previously. Probably the main reason they've done it is for packaging.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much going on inside the frame that you're like, I mean, it must have been an engineering nightmare to try and get all that to work.
Oh, to get it to fit. Yeah. Yeah, and the only way to do it was either a 6-bar or an 8-bar. Yeah. You can't get it with a 4-bar. So last summer I sat down and did a course from America, an online course about linkages, and it blew my mind. And even one of the things that the guy said, I've been giving this lecture for like 30 years and people talk about, why are you still talking about 4-bars? And he could keep learning things about them. And then they went to 6 bars and 8 bars. And the whole thing with the 6 and 8 bar really is like, it's about space constraints. It allows you to move in a tight environment in the directions that you need like a robotic arm to move. So yeah, it makes complete sense that if you want to put the shock inside the frame and you want certain parameters from your suspension, then going to a 6-bar makes a lot of sense.
Lets you tune that, yeah.
So are there any bars hidden inside the frame, or is everything visible?
Well, so the main link drive, the lower link driving the shock is around the bottom bracket.
Yeah,
so that's
concentric with
big
the BB.
Unit, around the bottom bracket, which is kind of, if you look at the bold bikes, there's one of the bolds that has that. And then you have the kind of 2 tie links tying the upper and the lower links together. So the shock is kind of horizontally laying inside the kind of base of the down tube. Yeah. I mean, in terms of sleekness, it's got to be, the cleanest looking bike out there, I think, because you've got all the cables integrated, you've got the shock hidden. I mean, they've done an incredible job. And you can also apparently get coil shocks in there as well. Not every single coil shock and not every single air shock.
Will fit.
Vivid Air won't fit. But it will take some Fox coils and some other coils.
And has the travel changed on the bike from the one that we tested?
170 millimeters still.
Yeah. Front and rear?
Front and rear, yeah.
Okay.
But so one of the main criticisms when you tested it was the kind of the disconnect between the front end performance and the rear end suspension performance.
I remember it clearly.
Because they had the twin lock. So the 3-position remote, and it locked out or it changed the damping characteristics. And it
also meant that they couldn't fit like a Grip 2 style damper to the fork, so you didn't have the sort of support. The fork felt like a little bit divey and stuff. But that bike, I remember clearly how good it was at eating up really rough chatter.
Yeah,
it was so smooth.
Really supple, wasn't it? So they've kept the now called track lock, so the 3-position remote is still on the bike, but only connected to the shock. So they've basically done exactly what we wanted them to do 5 years ago. And that means you get a really good Grip 2 damper like Fox 38 up front, and no issues with support or anything, but you still get the advantages of the track lock at the rear. It's effectively like someone putting some volume reducers into the shock at the flick of a switch. So you can push it.
It affects the dynamic ride height of the bike, doesn't it?
So it makes it much, much harder to get full travel. So you kind of raise the dynamic ride height a little bit, becomes a little bit more progressive.
People sort of think of it as a climb switch thing, and it isn't just for that. Like, because it changes the dynamic right out of the bike, and you're on a modern bike with a long front end and slack head angle, if you're actually on flatter trails and you need to load the front, you can pop it in the mid setting, and it just allows your suspension just to sit up and load your front end that much better. So it isn't just for climbing.
On a similar vein, when you're setting the bike up, you can run a bit more sag as well. So I think I ran 35% sag, because you know that you can put it into the mid setting, and then
you're not stuck there.
Yeah,
basically.
And then there's a final third setting which does add some compression damping, and it makes it pedal a bit better, but it's not something I really used. But so I think they've really kind of nailed the packaging and the system on this bike now. So it gives you the advantages, but you don't have the drawbacks that we had before. So that's the kind of suspension design. There's 5 different models.
Okay.
Starts from £5,099, that range. Yeah.
That's a competitive price given the tech that's in it.
Yeah, definitely. And you get the things like the front mudguard, you get the tools and stuff like that. So they're throwing in some stuff as well.
So the bike you rode was $29.29.
Yeah.
Can you run it as a mullet? Do they have it? Can you adapt it for that?
Yep, you can. There's a little flip chip down on the lower link, and it keeps the geometry pretty static, they say, but it does reduce the chainstay length by around about 10 mil. There's also 3 head angle options with so there's 2 inserts. There's a neutral, a symmetric one, and a offset. I think it comes with the offset. You can rotate it to slacken it or steepen it. To put the neutral one in, you will have to disconnect every single hose and cable that runs through the frame, of which there are quite a few, because you've got the twin lock remote.
I don't think anyone's going to be running the neutral.
I don't think so. To be fair to them, considering there's a lot of cables, it does look incredibly clean. It's routed through the headset bearing, and then you've got a cover at the back. So it does look neat, but you will need bespoke, washer.
I can see the comments now.
Spacers. Yeah. The other thing that's neat about the bike is they've got a sag indicator, and it also tells you how much travel you're using, and you just look down and you can see it.
Is it similar to a little magnetic one, or is it just like a needle?
Not magnetic, it's a little needle.
Okay, that's probably better, because it'd be really easy to lose the magnet on the old style one. Yeah.
So a hell of a lot of neat stuff going on with that bike. There's a lot of pivots, a lot of bearings, but quite an engineering feat, I think, with that bike. And I've got to say, it rides great. Like, as an enduro race bike, if you want something that absolutely flies up the climbs or saves energy on the climbs, but then you can really hammer on the descents, it's a great option. No, it's a cool bike. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show, and let us know in the comments below what you think of the 2 bikes we featured today.